Bosses are bigger than ever in modern games, and fights are only getting more complicated. These are the bosses that stuck with us and twisted our brains in knots. You'll need a spreadsheet in a few hours to beat some of these complex bosses in video games. We got 10 to talk about, so let's get started off with number 10. Riven is one of the most infamous bosses from Destiny 2, the king of complicated boss fights. A boss that's so tough, we're probably never gonna beat it, honestly. This is a boss that requires perfect coordination between two teams, all while fighting a giant monster with weak points that aren't easy to call out. Raid bosses in games like Destiny 2 are another breed of complexity, sporting their own uniquely aggravating gimmicks and pushing players and groups to their absolute limits. Riven is so complicated, it's hard to describe how to even fight this boss. We're gonna try our best. Destiny 2 experts go easy on us, but we're just trying to explain here. So Riven essentially splits your raid team into two groups, putting the teams in two totally separate rooms. To damage Riven, one team needs to shoot its eyeball weak point. The trouble is, Riven has a whole bunch of eyes. To figure out which eye to shoot, the team in the opposite chamber must communicate which glowing spot has appeared for them, and only them. The glowing spot isn't visible for the team actually fighting Riven and dealing the damage. Confusing? Yes. Essentially, only one team can see which eye is vulnerable, and then they'll need to communicate that info to the team currently shooting Riven to shoot it in the face at that specific point a billion times. But this isn't even the most complicated aspect of the fight, right? To see the weak spot, players need to shoot a weird eye cleanse spots. These are lens holders and taken essence holders that need to work together by coordinating to more invisible spots only one user can see. And on top of all that, one false move can end the fight instantly. When one team calls out Riven's eyeball weak spot, if the DPS team shoots the wrong eye, they all die instantly. There are some complicated bosses on our list, but we can't think of any as annoyingly cruel as Riven. Now next over at number 9, Octopath Traveler 2. It's a game tailor-made for JRPG fanatics, and it pushed us to the breaking point here with the ultimate secret boss, Galdera. There are complicated boss fights in JRPGs, you probably know that, but for us, Galdera really beats them all. You'll have to split your party in other JRPGs for the final boss, but the fight against Galdera forces you to split your party and swap between them mid-battle, adding an additional layer of strategic planning to a game that's all about creating complicated synergies. So Galdera is a returning boss from the original Octopath Traveler, and is even more difficult this time around with multiple sub-body parts and forms you essentially need to dismantle to win. It regenerates body parts. Naturally, this is a tough JRPG boss, so that's what they do, but it's all while it's pummeling you with weird status effects and high damage magic attacks.
Here's a little something for you.
You'll need elemental attacks, but you'll also need physical attacks, because this boss generates a reflective shield that blocks all magic elemental damage in his second phase. He has so many turns per round, the only way to get ahead is by using skills that give your party as many extra actions as possible. And those extra body parts we talked about before, they make the main portions of Galdera totally invincible. So screen clearing attacks won't even whittle this boss's massive health bar down, not even a little. You'll need to mix up concoctions for constant healing and boosts to your BP, managing an array of EX skills with their own synergies, all just to barely stay alive. Winning the fight is another story. This is like the mother of all JRPG bosses, especially recently. It's a long slog that's still difficult, even if you use every overpowered exploit in the game.
Check. I fight for my friend to keep my friends safe. I'll end this. I summon Grant, the Thunderblade.
Thankfully, this is a totally optional endgame boss. Unlike the next boss on our list, he's required and he can take a while. Because next at number 8, we can't talk about complicated boss fights, maybe not the most challenging, but just complex, without talking about Metal Gear Solid 3. The whole series is packed with elaborate bosses. You know, the legendary Psycho Mantis battle from Metal Gear Solid 1 is one of my personal favorites. They all have little tricks and gimmicks, but the end in Metal Gear Solid 3 is a similar situation here. This is a a big boss fight that can technically take hours to beat. Some players fought this guy for days. Some people just completely brute forced it. Even if you know what to do, this fight is no joke. This is one of the longest boss fights ever, potentially, and it's all because you have to play cat and mouse with an expert elderly sniper. The end is just that. He's like an old guy with a tranquilizer rifle, and he ambushes our main character in the Russian jungle, rapidly switching shooting positions when he's spotted, and then blasting you if you're too noisy or too visible. So to win this fight, you'll need to use every trick and tool at your disposal. There's a device for detecting movement, for listening to sound so you can sense the breathing of the enemy sniper when you aim at the right spot. Or you can slowly sneak through the brush and just watch for the gleam of his sniper scope. There's so much more you can do in this fight. You can like wait a week of in-game time and then he'll just die of old age. You can leave spoiled food around for the end's little parrot to collect. The parrot essentially collects food for the guy so he can eat on the battlefield, but leaving behind rotten food is a good way to make him sick. You can also kill his parrot, and then of course you can even kill the end himself. There's an earlier cutscene where you can actually briefly see the characters taking the end away on a wheelchair, and if you're fast and you're smart, you can snipe him and stop the fight before it even begins. Just kill him right there, dome him. The end is one of the most legendary sniper duels in video game history. The fight is very tense, deliberate, and grueling. Again, it may not be the absolute most difficult, but it is very complex, and honestly, there's no other boss battle quite like this one. Next, over at number 7, the big optional boss of Gilgamesh Island in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is a test of everything you've learned so far, and a test of patience, because you need to finish all those annoying mini-games in each region to gain access to the secret island. So, after beating pairs of every summon, which is a bunch of complicated fights we could be talking about here, because every summon has a devious, unique gimmick, that aside, you'll get your chance to take on Gilgamesh himself. The man with 1,000 swords is one of the most elaborate bosses in the game. Gilgamesh is such a problem, he's one of the few bosses that doesn't have debuff immunity. You can do more than debuff him. You can also apply poison to him, and because he mostly deals physical damage, you can protect yourself with spells like Protect. Still, none of this makes him any easier. If anything, all those tricks level the playing field slightly. You'll need to use everything in your arsenal against Gilgamesh, because pressuring him is insanely difficult. If you've played any of the Final Fantasy remakes, you'll know that pressure and stun is the only way to deal high damage to big bosses like this. So if you don't break them by filling the pressure gauge, you'll just kind of be dealing pissy little damage for the entire fight.
All set.
Damaging Gilgamesh pressures him, slightly. The only effective way to pressure him is by perfect guarding his attacks, and that isn't easy when Gilgamesh is both lightning fast and has a revolving door of different abilities he'll whip out randomly at any time, so you're really on your toes. He is packed with special attacks, so have fun memorizing them all. And to make this fight even more complicated, Gilgamesh becomes immune to all damage with the Genji Shield ability. This essentially gives him an extra health bar you have to break with physical attacks. And the Genji Shield also buffs him greatly. You can remove all those buffs with Dispel, but too bad, Dispelling won't remove that overshield. It's a, oh God. So, like, I don't know, did you think the hardest boss in the game would play fair? Later in the boss fight, he'll charge an unstoppable ultimate attack that wipes your party, because of course he does. The only way to stop him is by interrupting the charge with your high damage limit breaks. Here's hoping you've been saving up your meter, because you're smoked if Gilgamesh unleashes this attack. The only other option is to cast Re-Raise and hope for the best. Now next over at number 6, if you thought Gilgamesh was bad, one of the more complicated bosses in games appears in a JRPG for kids. Yes, the top Google search for the Booster rematch in Super Mario RPG says everything that needs to be said about one of the most cruel boss fights in any game. How? In this post-game fight against Booster, one of the wacky side characters Mario battles kind of midway through this game, you'll have to deal with a whole new gimmick. Every turn, Booster works on his toy train. The little Sniffet minions with him will either attack you or cheer Booster on, speeding him up and getting him to finish crafting his toy train even faster. So if Booster manages to finish the toy train, he'll hit your entire party for max damage. That's a guaranteed wipe and an instant failure. Also, did we mention that Booster can complete his train as early as turn 1 when the fight works as intended, or at least so we've been told and what we've seen? It should take at least 2 turns before Booster kills everyone instantly with no way to stop it. You can slow down Booster by attacking him, but his helpful minions will continue to cheer him on, making him act faster and build that train even earlier. So you need to defeat the Sniffets. If you work fast, technically, you're meant to slow down Booster, destroy the Sniffets, and end the fight by then defeating Booster. That's how it's supposed to work, but many players, including us, honestly were like totally baffled by this one. Booster will seemingly, and due to an apparent bug, actually summon his train faster and faster every attempt, rendering this battle seemingly impossible. There is a way to win. If you're willing to dream at a specific inn or gamble for hours, you can earn rare items called Red Essence. These rarest of the rare items grant a single user several turns of invincibility. It can last 3 turns, or 5 turns, or less. It's totally random, and you can only carry 3 max at any given time. We needed at least 1 to keep Mario alive, and then defeat the Shy Guys, and then finally end Booster while he hit us with 9,999 damage every turn. Look, Super Mario RPG might accidentally have one of the most complicated bosses in recent video games. It definitely left an impression on us. Next at number 5, most complex bosses are difficult because they're so mechanically deep. You'll need to use new skills and learn new gimmicks and stuff to succeed, usually. But the final boss of 9 Souls, a lightning-fast Metroidvania, is complex because it has so many patterns, so many attacks, and so many tricks you'll need to memorize just to survive. The only way to win is by parrying with absolute perfection, turning this humble action game into just like pure rhythm-based chaos. By the third form of the true final version of Aigong, you won't have time to perceive her flurries of endless attacks. Muscle memory is everything in this boss fight. You better have it. Throw in the aggravating special parry that makes you charge for a moment before releasing, and you've got a boss that's one of the most complicated of all time. In a year with Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erd Tree, 9 Souls somehow blazed ahead in terms of pure difficulty. This is the only boss that's complex because of all the nonsense it throws at you just at blazing speeds. On your first attempt, this boss just seems like a joke, like it's impossible. Keep practicing for a few hours or, a couple of days, and you might scrape by for the first health only to realize there are even more elaborate boss phases ahead. Get to the third phase to just see how ridiculous a boss fight can really be. This thing is insane. Now at number 4, like I said earlier, not all complex bosses have to be the hardest. Some of our favorite complicated boss battles are just fun. They make us think outside the box and try things a little bit differently. The Mr. Freeze fight in Batman Arkham City is the perfect example of just a clever boss fight. Instead of memorizing patterns or trying to be the best parrier and get all sweaty, you need to think through every possible option to take down an opponent that's technically too tough to fight in just hand-to-hand combat. So Mr. Freeze in Arkham City in this world is kind of like a walking tank, so stealth is key. To deal any damage to Mr. Freeze, you gotta ambush him, attacking him from the shadows or using takedowns to deal some damage.
I make a wish, Batman. No!
Punching him in the face directly absolutely does not work. You need to get creative, and Freeze learns from his mistakes. So if you use bombs to knock loose walls onto Freeze or strike from the indoor gargoyle things, Freeze will then blast those environment objects with his beam, making them completely unusable. So you really gotta shake things up and never do the same thing twice. If you attack from behind, Freeze will then guard his back. He'll only fall for every kind of takedown method once. It's a good thing Batman just has so many different takedown methods and tricks up his sleeve. Way more than you might even realize. And that's the fun of this complicated little boss encounter. Going through a kind of mental checklist of all your different abilities, you know, using your gadgets and stuff to get the drop of Mr. Freeze and outsmart him, just makes you feel kind of like Batman. There are very few boss fights that make us feel smart. Maybe this fight doesn't make everyone feel super smart, but like I said, it's gonna at least make you feel kind of like Batman.
Get off me!
Now at number 3, Deltarune and Undertale are unique for their cinematically weird boss fights. Every encounter has its own gimmicks you'll need to learn, and Spamton Neo is one of the most complex in the series. This hidden boss from Deltarune Chapter 2 puts your party on a roller coaster ride of thrills, and transforms your humble heart into a shoot-'em-up spaceship. For this boss fight, your heart, normally it only dodges, turns yellow and sideways, gaining the ability to shoot and blast blue objects Spamton sends your way. You'll need it because the only way to get around Spamton's many deranged attacks is by clearing a path with your new little shooter ability. Spamton keeps spouting off his weird cursed sales pitch as he unleashes like this devastating array of weird attacks at you. He summons walls, he sends walking telephones after you, and launches explosive blue boulders that break into smaller chunks. Eventually, he'll use attacks with like so many different projectiles and stuff covering the screen, you'll just need freaking pixel perfect accuracy to avoid these attacks. Learning what he can do and when is critical for this optional secret boss. And while this thing isn't as difficult as the Secret Sands boss fight in the more murderous run of Undertale, this Spamton is like an undeniably weirder one. Heck, he might be more iconic at this point. And his music is totally deranged, but like in the best way. It's really cool. The whole sequence is just really interesting and we like talking about it. Now down at number 2, we go from one evil salesman to another in Baldur's Gate 3. Raphael is the literal devil on your shoulder, tempting you with solutions to your problems, but we know better. Never make a deal with the devil, right? Sometimes we wish we had made a deal with Raphael because taking him down is the most difficult, complex, and painful encounter in Baldur's Gate 3. This guy just throws everything at you. At the start of the battle, you're stuck inside a small chamber with 4 pillars of souls. These devices actually heal Raphael and change his strongest spells. You'll need to take care of them while dodging also a small army of demons. Now, appropriately, this guy has 666 health and attacks in his human-like devil form, but this is just the beginning of a really long battle. Whenever you smash a pillar, Raphael gains a soul charge he can use to transform into his ascended form, becoming more monstrous and more overwhelming and more powerful. He'll permanently transform after we've destroyed all the soul pillars, making the fight easier to manage but infinitely more difficult due to his really enhanced abilities. He can attack up to 4 times per round in this form, so you better be destroying all those little demonic buddies before reaching this phase of the fight. He is a long fight no matter what you do. Unless you place a whole lot of explosive barrels around the arena. That kind of always works wonders in this game, it's funny.
This ends now!
Now, down at number 1, the most complex boss to appear in the most complicated game of the last decade, La Mulana 2 is a masterpiece of just befuddlement. Every pixelated inch of La Mulana 2 is a weird puzzle with cryptic clues and notes and baffling items and confusing layouts that'll test the patience of even the most experienced Metroidvania enjoyers. La Mulana 2 is like the Metroidvania for crazy sickos that need a stronger drug. Metroid Dread is too normal, too straightforward. Prince of Persia makes navigation easier with that awesome screenshot feature. Forget all that. You need old school skills and a pen and paper to figure out La Mulana 2. And the last boss tests all your weird puzzle skills. This thing has 4 phases, starting simple and just really ramping up in complexity. At first, you'll be whipping a ghost thing, then a worm thing. Then it grows into the 2-story tall tentacle monsters with eyeball stalks shooting laser beams. That's when the tricky stuff starts. You'll need to use mantras, or words you can string together to solve puzzles, by following prophecies you found earlier in the game. Using the correct mantras will remove the invisible mask on this big ugly guy's face, and then make him vulnerable to damage again. The 4th form is even more overwhelming, as the 9th child channels the powers of all previous bosses. Yes, this thing is a freaking beast. A boss with many forms and subforms, with a mini puzzle to solve mid-battle, all while trying to survive an onslaught of insane magic attacks. When it comes to involved fights in video games, this is one of the most elaborate bosses we've ever seen. But those are 10 examples of complex boss fights that we just can't stop thinking about. There are plenty more out there though, so let us know which boss fights blew your minds and really kind of messed you up. There's a lot we love here at gameranx about boss fights, and some of the most fun bosses are also the most complicated. So we want to hear yours, like I said, and if you like this video, clicking the like button helps us out. We really appreciate it. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.